Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Friday, 8th August 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Russia has prioritized military spending amidst the war in Ukraine, even as the country's budget deficit surpassed its annual target because of volatile oil prices. The Russian economy had been decelerating before new sanctions were threatened. Red Square hosted an open-air museum celebrating the Allied victory over Nazi Germany. India's National Security Advisor, Dovell's visit to Moscow, underscores continued relations between the two nations, despite tariff threats. China's Xi Jinping conveyed to Putin his satisfaction with improved US-Russia relation. Bloomberg reported on a possible US-Russia truce that would cement Putin's territorial gains in Ukraine. Turning to the United States, under President Donald Trump, the nation withdrew from multiple international negotiations, especially those concerning climate change. However, the U.S. participated in discussions regarding a plastics treaty. President Trump has initiated a trade war against India, focusing on refineries that allegedly benefit from Russian oil. He has also threatened new tariffs on China over Russian oil imports and suggested a 100% tariff on imported chips, possibly with exemptions for some companies. Trump expressed his willingness to meet with Putin, regardless of whether the Russian leader agrees to meet with Ukraine's Zelensky. In India, National Security Advisor Dovell's visit to Moscow indicates the country's ongoing relationship with Russia. This occurs despite tariff threats aimed at refineries accused of profiting from Russian oil imports. China has directed brokers to halt the promotion of stablecoins, aiming to curb possible instability. Factory gate prices continue to fall, even as initial attempts to manage price competition show limited success. Bao Fan, the founder of China Renaissance, has been released after cooperating with authorities for over 2 years in an unspecified inquiry. Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corp., SMIC, China's leading chipmaker, reports that demand exceeds its production capacity. SMIC also downplayed the potential impact of former President Trump's proposed 100% tariff on imported chips. Beijing unveiled what is claimed to be the world's first retail outlet dedicated to humanoid robots at the 2025 World Robot Conference, BRC. Eve Energy, China's fifth largest EV battery manufacturer, is planning an IPO in Hong Kong. India's stock market faced a downturn, with the Nifty 50 and Sensex indices both declining 0.95%, closing at 24,363.3 and 79,1857.79 respectively, leading to investor losses of around 5 lakh crore. 119 stocks reached 52-week highs, while 110 stocks hit lows. Former US President Trump voiced concerns over India's ongoing purchase of Russian oil, arguing it supports Russia's war. Trump also suggested doubling tariffs to 50%, potentially impacting India's $434 billion merchandise exports. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi invited Russia's President Putin to visit India. The United States is preparing for a summit between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15th. This meeting is contingent upon Moscow establishing a ceasefire in Ukraine by next Friday. Trump hopes to negotiate an end to the war, potentially exploring territorial swap. His special envoy, Wickoff, is currently in Moscow as the ceasefire deadline looms. Switzerland now faces a 39% tariff on its goods imposed by President Donald Trump. This action stems from perceived insufficient efforts to address the U.S. trade deficit. The U.S. specifically cited Switzerland's role in gold refining as a key point of contention. Switzerland, grappling with its significant trade surplus with the U.S., is actively engaged in tariff negotiations. The Swiss gold industry has voiced particular anxieties about the impact on the bullion trade. Saudi Arabia continues to navigate a complex economic landscape. But despite a reduction in debt issuance, the nation still leads as the largest borrower in the GCC for the first half of 2025. The country's non-oil revenues are up, showing a positive trend with a 7% increase in the second quarter of 2025. Ma'aden, a prominent Saudi mining company, is experiencing significant growth, evidenced by an 88% profit surge. In the financial sector, Dar al-Maid successfully priced its IPO at the higher end of expectations. Remittances are another key factor, with Saudi Arabia being the largest source of inflows to Pakistan, accounting for a significant portion of the $3.20 billion received in July. Japan recently navigated trade tensions with the U.S., securing a correction from President Trump regarding a disputed tariff order. This intervention addressed what Japanese officials termed an extremely regrettable error. Despite this diplomatic success, Japanese companies are feeling the pinch, reporting a 12% drop in net profit, influenced by existing tariffs and the strength of the yen. Nevertheless, the Japan Nikkei demonstrated resilience, closing with a notable 1.91% gain. South Africa is currently navigating a landscape of both political and economic developments. The South African rand held steady as markets anticipated tariff news, especially after President Ramaphosa spoke with former US President Trump. A notable shift in the retail scene sees Shine and Temu outpacing traditional giants in South Africa's fashion market. In financial news, Equity Bank's expansion into South Africa is set to encourage investment from the Ugandan diaspora. Japan's Nikkei index soared nearly 2%, buoyed by a resolution regarding tariffs on exports to the U.S. This eased some trade-related anxieties. Meanwhile, China faced setbacks as its stock markets declined. Lingering trade anxieties contributed to the downturn in Hong Kong as well. This resulted in a mixed close to the week for Asian markets overall. South Korea is strategically investing in its artificial intelligence sector, aiming for near self-sufficiency and global competitiveness. Tsai Jong-un has been appointed as the new country manager for OutSystems in South Korea, signaling further investment in the nation's technological landscape. Meanwhile, the South Korean government has delayed its decision on Google's request to export local map data, raising questions about data security and competition. Canada's TX saw its most significant weekly surge since September, fueled by robust corporate earnings. Simultaneously, the Canadian economy faced a setback, shedding more than 40,000 jobs in July, partially offsetting prior growth. In matters of international diplomacy, Canada lowered its price ceiling on Russian oil, harmonizing its position with allied countries against Moscow. European shares enjoyed a strong week, achieving their best weekly gain in 12 weeks, buoyed by the robust performance of financial stocks. Diageo and DAL posted encouraging earnings reports, further fueling the upward trajectory. Expectations of a possible interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve also contributed to the positive sentiment. Countering this, European defense stocks dipped after reports surfaced about a potential U.S.-Russia initiative aimed at ceasing hostilities in Ukraine. Israel is preparing for an intensified phase in its conflict with Hamas, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced plans for the military to retake Gaza City, coupled with provisions for humanitarian aid distribution outside combat areas. Argentina's attempt to mask its actual inflation rate proved unsuccessful, drawing increased scrutiny. Australia has reversed its ban on TWC bids, recognizing the firm's implemented reforms following a prior tax leak controversy. Concurrently, the Australian bond market's global prominence is growing. The Australian stock market is also experiencing a period of moderation in anticipation of a pivotal central bank meeting. In the United States, President Trump's dismissal of the Bureau of Labor Statistics had sparked widespread criticism from economists and statisticians. President Trump also announced a U.S.-brokered peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, intending to bolster bilateral economic ties following decades of conflict. Putin intends to meet with Trump soon. Pakistan is witnessing a surge of economic optimism, dubbed a Trump high, even as India encounters economic hurdles. The nation also launched a national agri-stack initiative aimed at digitally transforming its farming sector. Singapore's long-term economic prosperity is under discussion, with analysts evaluating the drivers behind its success and strategies for sustained growth over the coming 6 decades. France is observing a rise in quiet quitting among its workforce, particularly during the summer months. Germany's ThyssenKrupp intends to spin off its marine division to leverage the current boom in the defense industry. The German share price index DAX is tracked at the stock exchange in Frankfurt. Russia has initiated construction of Kazakhstan's inaugural nuclear power plant. That Putin has engaged in discussions with HC, Modi, and other international leaders. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.